Okay, in chapter 4, the royal proposal, this is where he isn't trying to shower her with gifts, like, a knight tried to push himself on the queen with flowers and what have you. But at the same time, the queen sees that, while this is not intentional, because he's being in another world, she allows this because, um, in the end, remember, she's still in control of the situation. And so, again, this naive human doesn't realize that in this world, everything's symbolical. And so, for, Khaleesi, this is like a revelation, which is why it's titled that way, the revelation. The things he does with these gifts, and he's using symbology like, this is my heart. Okay, so these symbols carry a certain type of power that she hasn't had before, and no other man or world's ever given her this power. But the one that's really sticks out next to the crown that he's made for is the scepter. He feels that, hey, I might not get to see my world, you might not get to see my world, but would you be willing to accept this? She acted in such a way that you have to kind of see it. This is too good to be true. She's not going to let this go. She's already staked her claim on this human, and he belongs to her, but he doesn't realize this yet. He thinks he's in control because he's the one proposing to her. But again, you got to look at it from her point. She's always in control of the situation. So without hesitation, she grabs that scepter like, yeah, I'll take that as long as you're giving it up so freely. Because again, behind that scepter, there's like some power. And eventually she'll run into a priest and, it'll come across that, hey, this makes my power tenfold. Because he's doing things that's almost like a mistake, but because he's naive, because it's almost like he's following his heart, and she sees this and she loves that, but he doesn't quite understand that you can still make mistakes, even though unlike the one where he acted too boldly and she pretty much punished him by, yeah, you're drinking the golden waters of the dragon. Again, it never comes up. But the things he does is still coming back at him. It's like it kind of, in a good way, but not a bad way, backfires. Okay, this symbolism here, yeah, I'll take that. And so lays it across her lap because this here is a symbolism that gives her much power, and she knows that other people of the kingdom, the representatives, will see this, and it'll actually show up when they finally get married, which is a historical event for a world, because in all the history of Targaryen and other people of the kingdoms, no human has ever been on this world. So, she's not afraid, and somebody might think that it's a type of fear because, again, she's still in control. If you remember correctly, when on the first season, this witch who was a slave, and they were trying to kill her, but she, was wanting to give her a chance. And this witch says, hey, yeah, I can cure your husband of whatever is going on because it looks like he's dying after he had won a challenge and killed the other guy challenging his authority. It don't matter if you're man or woman. Okay, you try to challenge her for something that she already says, this is mine, and you're not taking it, you might regret making that decision. And so, knowing that fact from the first series is why she puts this like honorary royal, unspoken type of Queen's decree seal around his neck. He's not allowed to take it off, and you'll learn why. Only certain times he can take it off. It's all the rules that comes with this seal that you're wearing the Queen's seal. I mean, basically, you're her property. You're her sex toy, and nobody else is allowed to have you. But because she also has to uphold the laws of the kingdom, being the supreme ruler, yes, he has to learn certain royal etiquette, swordsmanship, so he's dignified because all eyes are going to be on him. But nevertheless, you're her property. And that's just all there is to it. So any woman that sees this will know you don't want to open up some wrath, because it don't matter if you're man or woman. She will get the last word, and it could be your very own undoing, even cost you your life. So you'll learn about this when you listen to chapter 4, the royal proposal. Okay, I had to do some editing from the original narration of chapter 5. Human learns swordsmanship and attends men's gathering party. The reason is because since the time before I moved from Kuski, Idaho to Yakima, Washington, I had watched Series 6. And this time, while, as before, where I took attention to detail for any possible redundancies, I had taken notes on Series 6. And so I'm going to recap on some things that hasn't changed, but there is one thing that is going to change. As you know, Daenerys has Missandei keep an eye on the human and report back to her as to what he's doing. You know, she's still almost like a young teenage Targaryen girl, though she be a supreme queen, because for her, this human is like not like any man of her world. He greatly stimulates her. He makes her laugh because of the dumb things he does or says. And it's like for her, this biggest turn on that this being from another world smaller than hers, though low in stature and with all his human frailties, because he was nothing but a legend. And again, remember Tyrion was joking around about, you know, it's inhuman to do this or something about humans, like you would use a word of slang, um, some people like in his the humans world would say, that was so dumb. I feel like a monkey's uncle or something. Well, to the people of her world, they would use the term human, but it's possibly because, once again, the redundancies that were discovered, where it said that in theory, quote unquote, and this is not from the movie, this is from actual research, because again, having made the Dean's List 4 times and graduated with honors from BCTI, I do hardcore research. And they wouldn't say Earth is 5 times bigger than itself, so it tells you right then that if they say, in theory, Daenerys Stormborn of the House of Targaryen's world is 3 to 5 times bigger than that of Earth, that means it's a super type Earth, but it's not Earth. It's an alien world. So with Tyrion making jokes and using the word human loosely, as probably in previous episodes when the series first started of the original Game of Thrones series, he's talking to Missandei and Grey Worm while Daenerys is out taking care of whatever kingdom affairs she has to do, and then makes the mistake of inviting slavers in the Pyramid Palace, which of course didn't quite go well with Daenerys, and that's before she planned her attack of invasion on King's Landing, which comes up in Series 7 and finally in 8, which then leads to Game of Thrones, The Missing Link, Lost Pages of Time. So long story short, you know how that turns out, because this is where now the motion picture comes in. So she's really wanting to know, what is this human up to? And, well, this is again going to be somewhat of a stimulation and turn on for Daenerys, because men in her world don't walk in a certain way if they have love in their heart. And this human is not aware of it. And so Missandei, being the trustworthy handmaiden she is, finds him in a palace garden. They have experienced for the first time what lovemaking is like. And you have to realize that with Daenerys being not a human herself, but a Targaryen, or you could say that all of the people of the Seven Known Kingdoms are Valyrian, just like people on Earth are all humans, but all humans are not the same. You have your humans of the United States, makes them Americans. You have humans of Great Britain, which makes them British. Well, for the Valyrians, it's the same way. You've got the Valyrians of the House of Targaryen, the Valyrians of the House of Winterfell. So they are a type of race. And so with Daenerys being a Valyrian, because she also knows how to speak the ancient language of Valyrian, and being from the House of Targaryen, the queenly position she holds, to have Missandei report back to her that, because they had just went through the most exciting moment where, again, Daenerys very curious, knowing that everything's in the right place, and staked her seal of claim on this human, is now had her own experience with him, and she's not displeased. But Targaryen sweat has something unlike human sweat. It's like, for a Targaryen to sweat on a hot day, it'd be probably no effect, just like any human would not be too affected if they had their own sweat on them. Well, when you put the two together, it's almost like the symbolic, romantic symbolism about chemistry. And for the Targaryen queen's sweat to soak into this human's skin, because his skin is thinner than that of the people of her world, it causes, because of the elements of her sweat, like that of an intoxication. It makes him have dizziness. He's very heightened. Uh, his hormones are on fire. And Missandei catches him rubbing his butt and walking in a way that would cause Missandei to have her eyes open wide and her mouth slightly drop open. It's like, this is not a way a man's supposed to walk. In the palace gardens, rubbing his ribs from top to bottom, and rubbing his butt like as if, he is a woman. But it's because he has this deep love for her. He's experienced something that a Targaryen woman has put him through that no human female ever could have on his world. And so this becomes quite the humor for Missandei. It's all she can do to keep from laughing. And so, as quiet as she can, she is trying to leave, but there's a little disturbance, so maybe some flower pots or something. And William hears this and he looks quickly to make sure nobody's watching, and so she kind of ducks, around a pillar or something. And he doesn't notice her, I guess, and so he just continues walking in this strange way, just like he's walking like he's had a little too much fun with the Daenerys, because he's sore in certain areas, like he's just gotten to virginize all over again. Well, she's finally able to get back and report this to Daenerys, and Daenerys, along with Missandei, have a great laugh about this. And Daenerys is quite amazed with what she's hearing, with her eyebrows raised and a very big smile. She enjoys having private talks with Missandei because, again, she trusts Missandei. They have this good friendship that whatever she tells Missandei stays between them. It's not for anyone else to hear. It's same with William and his world. Women talk about certain things that only stay with women. That's just common. And so it becomes quite the conversation about how William walks. But Daenerys decides it might be a little humiliating and embarrassing if she was to confront him about this. So they agree to keep these experiences to themselves, because it brings her quite the stimulation of the things that she's hearing that Missandei has seen. And so she encourages her, when the opportunity she arrives, to not really spy on him, but if she sees anything else, she would definitely want to hear about what is this human doing. So she's taken much delight into these strange things and the way he moves, because men in her world don't walk like that. Fortunately, when he was never caught by a knight, because always the knight might think he's like a weirdo or something, or something strange mentally with him. So, in any case, we now have this situation about Queen Margie, and this is why I'm doing a re-edit. If you remember correctly, in season 6 of the original Game of Thrones, Queen Margie is in the Faith of the Seven Temple, and the only thing that the viewer would have seen is the temple blow up, but it never really showed as to whether she was alive or dead. Unfortunately, King Tommen, seeing this, kind of figured that, his wife's gone, takes the crown off his head, and takes a nosedive out of the palace. Well, there's no bringing him back because even in reality, everybody knows if you're in that high up, it's going to be like an egg splat. You're done. There's no coming back from that. But based on certain redundancies, I did hardcore research and I found certain areas that were not exploding. So, in which case, Margie has a key role to helping Daenerys, so even though she doesn't probably realize it, in grooming this human to try to get out of the things he does, because it might be his undoing, and it could also undermine what Daenerys wants. So she has a key role in this. So I had planned out that wherever there was not green fire, she could easily have survived. And that's where in the Game of Thrones, the missing link, lost page of time, um, Queen Mary, which is King Johnston's wife, who he sits on the throne only temporarily because he's not got any interest to stake a claim on it, but it's to help the people of King's Landing out. And she found Margie, and of course, you already know that she survived out of all the people that had been killed in the Faith of Seven's temple. Well, it just so happens that Queen Margie, um, at the time of the men's gathering party, okay, because, it's like the bachelor party of King's Landing. And so he is at the request of Daenerys, because, again, everything being tradition and appropriate, it would be probably considered a dim view if everybody knew that Daenerys kept William in her chambers all this time, up to the time of being married. So she asked Tyrion, and Tyrion agreed to take William in. So until after the marriage, because this way nobody would suspect anything and nobody being the wiser. So when he arrives at Tyrion's house, he gets a surprise visit from Queen Margie. And of course, she's also possibly now looking to get remarried. But she finds things that William does that's a little bit odd. Again, he brings out the long thing. Tyrion, of course, has nothing to worry about Queen Margie trying to come on to him because he kind of knows Queen Margie a little bit better than most people, and she's just not like that. Um, him putting his face up to a flame and light and this long thing, and she's like, oh, like breathing like a dragon, again, symbolism being everything, and William, this poor dumb human, is not quite paying attention to what he's doing. People take things and see what's going on, and to them, that's a revelation of that interprets something. Well, they start talking, and after a while, she finally decides to give William some advice, in addition to whatever Tyrion may have given him, that he needs to realize that he's no longer in a dreamland. This is reality. Now, the viewer knows, of course, this is not reality, but again, this is being based on realism, which I hope to back an MA degree on. She tells the human, this is reality. You need to be careful what you're doing because people are going to see this. And every kingdom has their own spies. They may look like somebody that saddles the queen's horse or a maid scrubbing the palace floors. You just don't know. They look like us. But in the end, they can report things that you do, and that's not going to do you any good, and it's all certainly not going to help Daenerys. And so basically, when she gives this human, William, the advice, it's not so much that she's trying to help Daenerys out, but she's looking at it from a political standpoint. Daenerys did invade King's Landing, and she was there for about 3 to 6 months. May or may not have had a child. Won't know that till you see 7 or 8. But irregardless, then had the throne for about 3 days, up even on the wedding day of Jon Snow. But then, of course, we all know how that turned out at the very beginning of the Lost Page of Time. So rather than it have a bad havoc as before, she's looking at it that if he plays his cards right, since he has been chosen based on the seal hanging around his neck that she sees, it would be doing the kingdom all a great favor, politically wise. So William does take things into consideration, and so it's quite the visit with Queen Margie. Um, Unfortunately, when it comes to him doing a song presentation like he did for Daenerys, which, again, there was a time where she was talking to a knight before he got killed by these harpies that she didn't know her own brother Viserys was singing. And when Daenerys caught William singing, this kind of got her interested. She wanted a performance, so he did. Well, now he's going to do one for the House of Lannister. And again, the Queen Mother being on restrictions so that she don't get the Iron Throne, since King Johnston's on it with his wife Queen Mary, kind of sees the seal, and she kind of knows that it's an unspoken seal and she cannot touch the humans seductively. But he kind of falls in the Queen Mother's lap because he can't handle the drink of the world. Again, he's human, Then, while everybody may look the same, on the inside, the anatomies may be different. An example would be, the people of Daenerys' world may have their liver on the left side, whereas a human may have their liver on the right side, but you wouldn't know that unless you're a surgeon, and they don't have such things in her world. You get stabbed, you're pretty much screwed. There is no surgeon's going to save you like in his world. So when he falls into the Queen Mother's lap, she is reluctant to let him up when he tries to get up. So he, not knowing what he's doing, puts his arm around the Queen Mother's neck. And she knows that, with the seal around her neck, his neck, and her being on restriction, the only pleasure she's going to get is what she can make of it for right now. And so it becomes kind of an interesting conversation. But when he finally is allowed to get up, he tries to bow before her. And it does bring her kind of stimulation and pleasures for what she can at least enjoy of it. And he, instead of saying he tried to bow before her, he's like, I tried to bow before you. And this causes her much laughter because it's like he's trying to say I had a bowel movement. It's not just something you just blurt out, but he is again intoxicated. And so doing the part of this human was quite a funny situation for me because I think I played a very good drunk human drinking with Tyrion. And so Tyrion eventually gives good advice about trying to blend in their known kingdoms to William before he got intoxicated, because also, he's one of a kind, and he sees it from the same standpoints as Queen Margie, that it's not just for his own satisfaction that William doesn't get himself in this situation where somebody might want to take him out, but for all the kingdoms, it would be in his best interest to blend in because he's no longer on Earth. And if he's going to survive, he has to dress like them and try to act like them. And so that kind of is a good analogy. When you go to another country, you you wouldn't do things like if I was in London, it may be the 4th of July, but if I immigrated there, why would I celebrate a country I just emigrated and became a Londoner, a British person? You know, I'm not going to set fireworks off on the 4th of July. Somebody might find that as illegal. Why would you be celebrating a holiday when you're no longer a citizen of that country or something? Somebody might have a very dim view of that. So it's like for this William, human character, he has to do things that they do because this is the reality. He can never go back to his world. So here is where he's going to spend his days. So he has to blend in. So that's just some funny moments that I thought I'd share with you on this updated narration of Chapter 5.